Hey guys, so today is December 9th and I am finally getting to actually painting my brother's Christmas gift. Now, I mentioned this in a previous video where I did some thumbnail sketches, but basically this year my brother wanted me to do a painting of our dog Crystal, and that is what I am giving him for Christmas. So I did a sketch. I ended up going with one of the thumbnails, and you guys will see once you get further into the video which one I went with. And I did a sketch on my iPad. I'll post a little picture of it over here. And basically I had to find out how I had to find out a few different things. I had to figure out how I was transferring it to a canvas, what size canvas I was going to use, and I had to order the canvas because, I mean, my dad had like a couple things around here, but none of them were like exactly what I wanted. And one of them that was kind of close would require a little bit more work. So I just decided to order canvas board because I am putting this in my suitcase, my check-in luggage when I go up to New Jersey. All my hours this week, so work-wise, I'm in a good spot. I plan on doing some more hours later, but that's kind of overtime. So I'm taking a little break this afternoon just to do the sketch, do the underpainting, and let it dry so then I can start tomorrow on December 10th with the actual painting. So without further ado, let's get into sketching. I just want to make a quick disclaimer. I am recording this voiceover using my MacBook's microphone. I do apologize if the audio isn't that great compared to when I'm using my microphone. I left it in Florida because I didn't want to travel to New Jersey with it. So I'm going to do my best to make this voiceover sound as good as I possibly can with the equipment I have right now. So here I am starting with transferring my digital sketch to my canvas board using the grid method. If you don't know what the grid method is, a quick Google search could fix that, but in essence you want your sketch to be comparable to your canvas in that they are either the same size or on the same scale. In this case, I made my canvas on Procreate, and the canvas size was 11 by 16 inches, which was the size I had decided upon for my canvas board. In other applications, you could have a sketch that's 10 by 10 inches fit onto a 20 by 20 inch canvas board, or vice versa. Another example would be a 10 by 12 inch sketch on a 20 by 24 inch canvas. And you can either scale up or scale down. It's just personal preference and what's easiest for you. I went with the size, the 11 by 16 inch, because I thought it was appropriate for the subject and honestly was the biggest canvas board I could reasonably fit in my checked-in suitcase because I was going to be bringing this to New Jersey. Also, I picked a board over a stretched canvas because it would allow me more room in my luggage as well as weigh less. I sketched out a grid on my canvas board, making sure each square was 1 inch by 1 inch. I also configured the grid on Procreate to be roughly the same dimensions over my sketch. I sketched digitally because I generally find I can be looser when I know I can easily edit things. Knowing I have more control on Procreate made it easier for me to sort of give it up, if that makes sense. And while I was a bit worried about how to transfer that to a traditional canvas board, the process wasn't all that difficult. Initially, I did struggle because I'm not used to drawing something freehand. A part of me really wanted to break down the finished sketch into shapes on the canvas board and then build upon it. But then I forced myself to look at the digital sketch one square at a time. Breaking it down this way really helped me. I was now looking at where marks were in relation to the edges of the square, where they crossed into the square next to it, and so on. Was the transfer perfect? No, but given that the finished sketch was on the canvas board was pretty close, I was happy. When it came to an underpainting, I'll admit that I've never done one before. I watched a video by Sanche, I think that's how it's pronounced, which I will link below, about how she uses underpaintings for her gorgeous squash paintings. I highly recommend watching it. I went with my father's advice and used burnt sienna as both a wash for the canvas board as well as a way to block the darker colors of the sketch in. I didn't see how the underpainting impacted my finished painting, but that doesn't mean I don't want to experiment in the future, especially with other colors and methods. here I'm just doing the background color. I didn't really know what color to go with, but looking back, I think this was the best color to go with considering the blue tint to Crystal's fur. The muted peach color contrasts well in my opinion, and considering blue and orange are complementary on the color wheel, from a color theory standpoint, I guess it works. I mean, feel free to correct me in the comments, but I was happy with, in the end, how her appearance contrasted with her background. I jumped into the painting without much of a game plan besides the obvious to me, which was to go from background to foreground and dark to light. Other than those two rules, I was just adding paint to a canvas. Obviously, there are pros and cons to this approach, as well as acrylic as a medium. One of the biggest cons I experienced was dealing with how fast the paint dried on the canvas board. I used a Stay Wet palette to keep the paint I was mixing wet, so I highly recommend it for those of you who find acrylic just dries too fast for them. But it does nothing for the paint applied to the canvas itself. I later learned from my father, who primarily paints in oil because he hates acrylic, that he did have medium I could mix in the acrylic to slow down the drying process. He gave me his acrylics because he was using them for underpaintings, but I didn't know about the medium, which I could have used to make my life a little easier. In the future, I will likely experiment with slowing the drying time of the acrylic paints itself, maybe perhaps using some of the medium he was talking about. A pro about using acrylics is that it dries fast. If I had painted this in oil, likely I would not be able to travel with this painting. Also, I have no idea if I would have finished it in 2 days. I know there is a fast drying medium for oil, but again, I'm more familiar and comfortable with acrylics. I don't know if you can paint light to dark with oils, but you definitely can with acrylics, even though I did decide to paint dark to light. I also did not want to paint with pure black and white, as I had done with my paint and sip painting of Crystal. I wanted there to be more life to the finished painting, but I will admit to being a bit out of practice. I haven't painted with acrylics in years, and I never formally took a class or actively taught myself how to work in this medium. What I know is just from small things I picked up here and there over the years. In hindsight, I didn't blend all that much. I just kept mixing colors across the spectrum between a blue tinted black and a yellow tinted white. I only used pure black for my dog's mouth and eyes, which you will see later in the video. I layered these different colors, and I think I did better blending on the body than I did with the face, which again, when we get to the face, you'll see how that worked. I was tackling the body in small sections. I did one section in a base color, either the tinted black or gray, and basically worked it until it was rendered, because if I had painted the whole body in one base layer first and then built each layer on top of that,
Blending wouldn't have been possible because the layer beneath would be dry by the time I got to paint on top of it. The tail was by far my least favorite part of this whole painting. I unfortunately did not have a good photo of Crystal's tail to use as a reference, so I had no idea if this is how it actually looked. I knew the tips were a whitish gray. I mixed a tiny bit of yellow in there to get some warmth and a suggestion of light, but it isn't that noticeable, at least not to me. I know for a fact we used to have her get the lion cut tail when she went to the groomers, and then as it grew out, it just kind of looked like this curved, fluffy thing that would curl up against her back. It was honestly the cutest thing, and maybe in the future I can capture it in a better manner. One of the things that made painting the tail as well as some other parts of the body difficult was the fact I never seemed to have enough paint. I would mix and mix and mix, and yet canvas would still poke through. I would like to try a finer grit canvas in the future. I think I'd prefer something smoother or even wood instead of canvas. I'm just not a fan of huge amounts of tooth. And also, I'm always worried about mixing too much paint and wasting it, especially when it comes to acrylics. Thank goodness they aren't that expensive, but it still means money down the drain if I don't end up using it. Because acrylics do dry very fast, whereas oils, I could probably leave them out for days and have no issue. So I didn't approach painting the face the same way I had approached the body. And while I'm not unhappy with the end results, I do think I would have liked it better if I had blended it out a bit more and basically took each portion of the face a step at a time, instead of just laying the base colors across the whole face and then going back over the layer with the other colors. Because I had just painted her whole face a tinted black, a lot of it was dry by the time I started with a slightly lighter color. I couldn't blend unless I mixed a color really close to the base color. I think it came out more how I imagine someone painting with acrylic wash or Posca markers. You can see the brushstrokes and the blocks of color as separate shapes. It's just not blended, and that's a stylistic choice. It's still beautiful. It just wasn't a decision I consciously made or had even noticed I made until I finished and took a step back from the painting. Needless to say, at first, I really wasn't pleased with how the face came out. It felt separate from the body to me, and I immediately was sending pictures of it to my father and mother, pointing out what I thought was an obvious flaw. Of course, they both liked it. Even my father said it was impressive, which is a big compliment coming from him. But really what I should have done instead of immediately deciding that I didn't like it was sleep on it. Give it a day. Look at it with fresh eyes and then decide. I was forced to do that Saturday night. I went to bed a bit dejected, but accepting of the fact I wasn't in love with the painting I had already poured at least 7 or 8 hours into and was gifting to someone else. It was not the best feeling, but I have dealt with similar things before, being the perfectionist I am when it comes to my own art. I know other artists are like me in that regard. It's almost like we just can't be in love with our own work. We have to find at least one flaw to point out. And I think that's okay, as long as you dedicate yourself to learning how to fix that flaw. The first part of solving something is acknowledging that it is a problem, right? I just think we need to be a bit kinder and more methodical about it than just being like, I hate this, which is kind of what I did Saturday night. Even though I went to bed thinking I had made a mistake, the next morning I woke up and looked at that painting only to fall in love with it. The first moment my eyes found the canvas, I was flushed with this deep-set feeling of accomplishment. I saw the likeness. I saw good decisions. I saw that my skills as an artist had improved. And then as I studied it further, I saw everything that was wrong with it, but not in the same self-deprecating way I had done the night before. Instead, I was being more kind to myself as well as taking mental notes. For one thing, this is the first time I had done anything like this. I had done so many things that made me so uncomfortable, and yet I loved a lot about the results. As for the things I didn't like, the difference in style between face and body, the nose being slightly tilted too much, and you can probably see it when I do close-ups of her face, the tail, I was content with looking at them as lessons. This mindset would do me well, especially when it came to finishing the painting with bubbles in the foreground that Sunday.
So today is Sunday. It's approximately 10:30 a.m. I finished painting Crystal herself last night. I was not happy with how she looked, but seeing her today, I'm feeling a little bit better about it. And today I'm hoping just to finish the whole thing. I have to just do a couple bubbles on the front, and I'm going to watch a video about how to do that because I've never painted bubbles before, and I'm sure it's just a matter of placing certain colors and shapes in certain places within the bubble to make it look like a bubble. So I'm sure it's actually not as hard as I'm thinking it is, but I'm still a little nervous about it because it is in the foreground. So any mistakes I make, I can't really fix easily because everything's dry. I did this in acrylics, so I have never painted in oils, and I wasn't gonna start with something that I needed to like come out good within like a short period of time because this is like day 3, and I would say the bulk of what I did was yesterday. So that's what we're gonna do. And if you've gotten this far, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. And I hope it was interesting for you to watch, going through my process as well as showing you what I'm doing. If you like these kinds of videos where I paint something and you get to follow along, please give this video a like. Lets me know that you're interested in this type of content, and it also helps out the channel. Also, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, or maybe you've seen a couple and just haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so by hitting the subscribe button and the little bell next to it. The little bell will tell you whenever I post a video. And then our community can grow a bit bigger. I mean, I can't believe we're already at 100 subscribers. I honestly did not know if we were going to reach that before the end of the year, and to have reached it before December is just amazing to me. But thank you guys for all your support, and I hope you guys are having a good holiday season no matter what you celebrate. Let's get back to finishing up this painting, shall we?
It's funny how part of me never wants to paint a single bubble again, while another wants to just to simply see how I can improve. I watched a tutorial for these bubbles, and the first 2 I did, I followed the video step by step. This video, if you want to see it, is linked below and was quite helpful. I highly recommend it if you want to learn how to paint bubbles. However, in the future, I think I would like to study them from an image and try to paint them without the assistance of someone else. I think it would allow me to understand more about how or why certain colors go where, because the bubbles that followed the first 2 were completely done at random. I didn't really have a thought process behind them. A lot of it was just random decisions because I had no rules and choices had to be made. I didn't have the time or luxury to be indecisive. In the end, I hated painting bubbles. I took many breaks where I just sat in my desk chair and stared at the progress I had made, as well as loathed the rest of the bubbles I had to do. It took a lot longer than I had anticipated because I was just dragging my feet. Do you guys have something like that? A part in the process, or perhaps a certain object or body part that just takes you forever? For me, it's hands, and now bubbles. I needed them in the painting though. I felt the piece would be somewhat boring without something else in the foreground, as cute as my subject was. So in the end, when I had picked one of the thumbnail sketches, I knew it had to be one with something else in it. One last thing I would like to point out is the placement of the bubbles. This was completely subconscious. In the sketch, I just put them where I thought they looked good. But when I analyzed the finished painting, I realized they had been arranged in such a way that they made Crystal the focal point. Some might argue that that is an innate talent or eye for design, but I can assure you it's not. I learned that through years of observation, and even still, it's not perfect. I did it on a completely happy accident, and a lot of times when I do similar things, it's something I realized later on that I had done it. And I know I can improve still in so many ways, and I want to. But it was still a proud moment for me when I stood back from this painting and noticed, wow, the placement of these bubbles that I absolutely hated painting adds something here. So, you know, you never really know until you're completely done.
So as you can see, I'm finally finished. I think it took me at least 4 days because I had to do the sketch one night, which probably took me about an hour, the rough sketch digitally. And then Friday, I probably spent like 2 hours getting the sketch onto the canvas because I had to do the whole grid system, and that was my first time doing that as well. Yesterday, I know I spent at least 5 to 6 hours painting between the background and Crystal herself, the dog. I know this because I was on FaceTime with my brother the whole time, which was kind of unusual for us. I mean, sometimes we do 2 to 3 hours because like we don't see each other that often. He's in college, but we spent 5 or 6 hours on FaceTime. He could not see the painting, so I also am going to make it so he can't read this. He can't watch this video. I'm going to ban him from watching this video because this video goes out before Christmas. But I want to thank you guys for coming along on the journey. I'll obviously, before I close this whole thing out, put some shots of the painting in very good light here and there. I'm still trying to figure out my lighting situation in here. I think I might actually see if my dad will let me move my desk so that when I'm filming, the light is on me coming through the window with the camera instead of behind me, if that makes sense. I don't know. We'll see. I have to figure it out. I might also just try to figure out a different way to light. I have like so many lights on right now. You don't understand. And it's still like, even with that thing down, no. And I'm sorry you can hear my notifications in the background. But anyway, I would say the real struggle with this painting and the thing that I really don't like about it is that her face and her body don't really match styles. So her body is definitely more blended out, and you can probably see that in the clips earlier in the video as well as the clips I'm going to post after this. And her face looks more like blocked, I guess, like colors. I don't know. You'll see what I mean. My dad saw it too, but he said it kind of looks like when you have, like, if you're taking a picture with a camera and the focus is more so on the face and everything else is more blurred. So like he said, it kind of looks good, which I'm really happy about. He hasn't seen the bubbles yet as of this moment. The bubbles were a real struggle too. I'm still not happy with this bubble right here. You'll see in the clips why. I think I just added too much color and I need to lessen back a bit. But other than that, it was a really fun process, and I'm happy with how it came out because it was my first painting in a while. And if you compare it to my old painting, which I'll pop up on the screen in a second here, the one that I did at the Paint and Sip, there is improvement. Like, I can see the improvement, and it just makes me so happy that it's there and that I could actually do this from step one to finish, because with the Paint and Sip, obviously I had someone else sketch the dog for me before I got there. So that's it, guys. I'll definitely let you know how my brother reacts. I definitely want, maybe I can film it and he'll let me post it. I don't know, but I hope he loves it. Maybe he'll watch this video after he gets it. So Alex, 10 plus hours into this, but even though there were points where I was just like, I want to stop painting, but it was also acrylic, so I couldn't just like stop. Some recommendations, if you guys are doing any paintings like this one, big paintings, and you just hadn't thought of it, remember to take a picture of your sketch on the canvas before you start painting. It helped me a lot with placing the bubbles. I mean, they're not exactly where they were on the grid, I'm sure, but at least they're somewhat in the same general area. Also, the grid method works. Just have some patience and focus on the squares that you're in instead of like thinking about like, how is this going to work here in reference to other spots in the grid. Just look at that one grid tile or the two together and just be like, okay, this piece of the drawing, this is what it looks like in this grid, and just keep going and then you're fine. And it won't be exact, but it'll be close enough that you can work with it. Don't be afraid to do something out of your comfort zone. I had a couple things here that kind of made me uncomfortable. For one thing, I was trying to add depth, not so much in the background, but going forward, I'm gonna try besides the bubbles. Bubbles were definitely out of my comfort zone. I watched a video tutorial and even that didn't really help me too much, but I did like the first 2 bubbles like following his tutorial, and I'll link it down below, and then kind of went off on my own. The other thing is adding depth as far as like on her fur. I was really uncomfortable with going with blue, but even now, like, I mean, yes, there is a blue tone to her. It doesn't bother me. Like, to me, it looks more realistic than the one I had in my bedroom, because my dad even said like that one doesn't look like it has much depth to it because I used black and white. I did not use, you know, blue or any other color. And I tried to put a little yellow in the white to kind of give her a little bit more warmth, but it doesn't show up that much. And I was just too scared to go further with that, but I at least got it in, I got the blue and the black. So like how I did that was I mixed the black with blue, and then occasionally I would add white to kind of make it like a grayish blue. And that's how I added depth to her fur. And that's all I have for you guys. I hope you have an amazing holiday season. I hope you enjoyed this video. My best to you and your family. Thanks for watching.